Welcome to Delivering Miracles, a podcast to teach women like you tips and strategies on how you can have a safer pregnancy so you can bring home a healthy baby. I'm your host and your high-risk pregnancy expert, Parijat Deshpande. I can't wait to chat with you. We have this running joke between my husband and I. When I was pregnant really early on, when we were only facing one or two complications instead of the full gamut of them by the end, somebody had given him a pregnancy book. And we thought that was so interesting that there was a book for partners, and he was super excited about it. And he opened it up and he saw that it said the book is for partners and doulas. Now, he had no idea what a doula is. I don't think he still knows what a doula is, but he decided he was going to be my doula. That became just like his thing. Like, I'm going to be your doula. I'm going to be there for everything. And he was super charged up about it. And it would just be this thing that he would use to cheer me up, especially on days when I was on bed rest and I was just feeling really down and really just like, I can't believe I'm not moving and I'm just feeling dejected and just not having a very good day. He'd be like, what can I get you? I'm your doula. I'll go get it for you. It was just really cute and really sweet. Now, we're going to talk about doulas on a later episode, and we're going to really get into it. But for the most part, doulas are available for women to help with the birth and to be there during the birth. And my husband didn't make it to the birth of our child because our son came so fast. When you deliver that early, it happens extremely quickly. And my doctors had told me about that, but I didn't think it would be that fast. And he was at work, which was only about 10 to 12 minutes away, but it was a Friday afternoon. So he hit a little bit of traffic. And from first contraction to delivery, it only took me 12 minutes. And that was even with me holding on and not pushing because the NICU team wasn't ready. And so he didn't make it. And by the time he got there, they'd already taken my son to the NICU and the pregnancy was over. The room had almost cleared out, I think. And he just kind of walked into the aftermath of that. But we have this running joke that he is the worst doula ever because he didn't make it to the birth. It was just kind of our way of making light of such a heavy, dark moment that we had gone through by having our son come so early. You know, my husband was one of those, and still is, he's super supportive and he really wanted to be involved. And he really did want to show up for the birth. And had I carried to term, I know he would have been a great doula-ish person. But I know that a lot of women struggle with their partners showing up and being involved and really making an effort in the way that they want to see their partners making an effort. And that's what this episode's going to be about, is really talking to you and your partner on how to be involved in your pregnancy, because it's important for you and for your partner that you're both in it together. And it's kind of a weird situation, right? How many other situations in life do we have it that one person is completely physically involved in something and the other person is supposed to be supportive but then also supposed to be involved? It's a really weird dynamic. So I want to talk to you about that today and really help you get some ideas on how you both can be involved, how you get your partner to be supportive and be involved during your pregnancy. Recently, I was talking to a client who's now a former client because she delivered her baby. Yay! I'm going to call her Maria. Maria was on bed rest for so long. She was such a trooper. She was about 20 weeks or so into her pregnancy when she was put on bed rest, and she delivered at 38 weeks. So, gosh, she was such a trooper. And she was so sweet. She was very young, and the youthfulness you could see on her face, you know, with the you could just see it, on people's faces. They've got this look of youth, and but her eyes were drained. And so there's a little bit of disconnect on her face about her just looking so young, but her eyes showed that she's been on a rough road up until now when she reached out to me. She found me through, I think someplace online. I can't remember if it was Facebook or Twitter or something, but she found me somehow online. And she was on bed rest. And I'll never forget just watching her. She had to be lying down. Her doctor had told her not to even recline at home, but just to be lying on the sofa. And so I was sitting up looking at my computer, and she'd be lying flat on the sofa, and we'd do our sessions that way. And we talked about a lot of different things. And the way that I work is I do a lot of assessments on all aspects of your life. And so we hit on relationships when we got to that point. And she spoke so highly of her husband. They'd been married, I think it was not too long, I think 2 to 3 years or something. So they're very early on in their married life. And she was so happy. They had a great marriage. She said, my husband was so nice. He's so sweet. He's so attentive. But, they had been through a lot in their very short married life. They had experienced numerous miscarriages. And that on top of just getting used to being married and the newlywed phase, it was taking a toll. And she said she could feel it, that it's not that he was pulling away. It's just, she felt like he was just tired and he needed a break too, which was very understandable. So she was pregnant over the holidays. And once the holiday season hit, she said she felt like her husband had just started checking out. He'd find all these reasons to meet up with his friends who are back home from college or work or visiting from wherever, and they're back home in their hometown visiting family now. So he'd just go out with them and party in the evenings and at night, and would stay over at his best friend's house once in a while, and she just wouldn't see him very often. And it was hard on her as it is that it was the holidays and she was on bed rest, so she couldn't attend any of her family gatherings, and both of their families lived nearby, so there were a lot of events that she wanted to go to that she couldn't go to that year. And then on top of that, to know that her husband was just kind of chilling elsewhere, doing his thing while she's lying on bed rest at home without being able to enjoy the holidays, was really hard on her, and it really hit her. And while she never cried during the sessions, you could see on her face just how sad this made her and how lonely she felt during this time of year. So it was either Thanksgiving or Christmas. I don't remember exactly. I want to say Thanksgiving. And yes, it was Thanksgiving, because he wanted to make, okay, I'll tell you. So it was Thanksgiving, and she said that Thanksgiving was coming up in a few weeks, and her husband came and sat next to her. It was a weekend, and she was really excited that she was going to get a few hours to spend together because they hadn't had that in a little while. And as Thanksgiving was approaching, she said that he had this great idea, and he looked really excited, so she wanted to support him. And he said, I want to make a turkey, and I want to invite everybody over to our place for Thanksgiving this year. And she just kind of went silent. Like, really? You're going to invite people over to our place, and you're going to make a turkey, and where do I fit into all of this? She felt very rejected. She felt like he wasn't seeing her and he wasn't noticing her. And he's like, no, don't worry. You don't have to cook. We'll get all the sides from takeout, and I'll just make the turkey, and it'll be great. And I'll take care of it. And she couldn't bring herself to tell him. Thanksgiving, I think, was just a couple weeks out. So it was already so late into the season. No preparation had been made or anything. And she didn't want to bring up also the fact that where she was lying on the couch, she would be physically isolated from everybody else who'd be hanging out in the kitchen. And so she just felt awful, and her heart was broken because she just felt like they were on completely different pages. But she didn't want to hurt his feelings because he was so excited, and she knew that they'd been through so much, and she felt responsible for how much they'd gone through, and she thought she owed it to him to say yes. So she said yes. And Thanksgiving came, and some other family came over, and exactly what she predicted happened, that she was lying on the sofa in the other room, and everybody else was hanging out in the kitchen and the dining room, and she couldn't see them because of the way that their house was laid out. She showed me. She even moved her computer around so she could give me a mini tour of what the house looked like, and I couldn't see anything when she flipped her camera around. And she just, when we had the post-Thanksgiving session, she was sobbing. I hadn't seen her cry like that in all the weeks that I'd worked with her. And she was sobbing. And she was heartbroken, completely crushed, because she had come up with all these solutions of things that they could have done to spend that day together. And I remember just through her tears, she was saying they could have made a picnic and sat next to me or sat in the same room as me. We could have ordered some food so not everybody would be hanging out in the kitchen while he's making the turkey, like something else. We could have done something else, and I can't believe he didn't think of me. And it broke my heart to see her talking like that too, because I could feel how alone she felt and how invisible she felt, that her husband just didn't even see her and see her needs. And it just became two people doing their own thing, living parallel lives in that moment that was so momentous to her. It was their last Thanksgiving without a baby. It was just the two of them, and she really wanted it to be something special, or as special as it could be given everything was going on. And he just wasn't on the same page as her, and they missed each other. They were just like two ships passing in the night. So all this to say that she struggled with getting her partner involved in her pregnancy, and that's something that's really important so you don't feel so alone during all these ups and downs that you're facing. Another client of mine, Serena, I'll call her Serena, I thought of her also when I was thinking about this topic, because with her, this issue of partnership and her relationship with her partner came up also. She was referred to me by her OBGYN, who told her that she needed some support with her anxiety because her anxiety was through the roof. Serena was one of these women who you could see her anxiety on her face and in her demeanor. It was just, there was no hiding it. There was no masking it. It was just right there. And what I love about that is that then it's really easy to work with, because there's no defenses or there's nothing that we have to cut through to get to that anxiety. She was very open about it. She's very, she owned it and said, yeah, I'm extremely anxious. Everything makes me freak out. And so it was very easy to work with her because of that. But I mean, it was serious for her. It got to the point where she was seeing her obstetrician every single week because she was so convinced that something had gone wrong and something was hurting the baby or hurting her. And she was just so convinced every week, and she'd go see the doctor. And so that's when her obstetrician said, hey, I know somebody who might be able to help. And that's how she came to me. It was very interesting that really the primary topic that we talked about in her sessions was her relationship with her partner. Usually when I have women who come to me during their high-risk pregnancy, it's to talk about coping with the pregnancy. And this wasn't the case with Serena. She was so sure that she was right, that something was wrong with the pregnancy, and her husband never took her seriously. Every time she brought it up with him, I think there's something wrong. I think we should call the doctor again. I think we should go to the ER. He would always tell her, and in her words, she said, he'd always tell me, just relax. And if you relax, you won't feel so bad all the time and you'll stop worrying. And she would tell me that she sometimes wouldn't even talk to him because all that was on her mind was something's wrong, but she knew that he would just tell her to stop worrying, everything's fine. And so they wouldn't talk to each other. And their conversations, while they never escalated into huge fights, and my guess is, I never actually worked with her husband, so I'm not quite sure, but my guess is her husband was being very careful with her. Being pregnant, having a high-risk pregnancy already, he didn't want to fuel the fire and make anything worse, but there was very clear disagreement. He would kind of have this attitude, she said, of, oh, what are you complaining about now? Like, now what's wrong? And the interesting thing that she shared with me, which was really great insight of her, is that response would fuel her anxiety more. She told me that if he worried a little more, I might worry a little bit less. But because it doesn't feel like he worries at all about anything, I've got to carry all those worries with me. Which I thought was so poignantly said and really made a lot of sense in terms of the dynamic that you have with your partner. And so a lot of the work that we did was about getting her partner involved in her pregnancy, because it's a give and take process. And the picture that Serena painted was exactly what you want to do during your pregnancy. Even though you're the one that's literally carrying the baby, you don't have to carry, nor should you carry, the burdens of the entire pregnancy. Now, it's completely okay for your partner to take a break, go out with friends once in a while, to have some alone time or whatever it is that he or she needs. But you want to make sure that you're both in it together. The research shows that marriage has such a profound effect on a woman's health. In fact, marital problems are a tremendous risk factor for cardiovascular disease, heart attacks even, for women. Because the disconnect, the discord, the conflict that you have in a marriage takes a tremendous toll physically on both men and women, but the research has so far shown for women especially, it takes a really, really big toll. Now, aside from research, just generally, you can understand that coping with anything is easier when you've got a partner on your side. And if that partner happens to be your husband or wife, that can make a huge impact on your health, physically, emotionally, and just generally how you cope with your high-risk pregnancy. So you want to figure out a way to get your partner involved in your pregnancy. And now is the time to do it. Before the baby's born, before life gets super hectic and you hardly have time to talk to each other at all, because baby needs something, you've got to pump, you've got laundry, you've got to cook, you've got other children to take care of, there's work. I mean, it gets exponentially crazy once the baby comes home. So before that happens, whether you have other children or not, now is the time to figure out how to get on the same page with each other. So that once that becomes a habit, you'll be able to rely on it even when you've got the postpartum craziness as you're healing and you're getting used to parenting a new baby. Now, I know what you're thinking. I've tried everything. Nothing works. I can't get through to my partner. I hear all the time from women, my partner is just not interested. He doesn't care. And I want to challenge that for a second, because it's not that they're not interested. It's not that they don't care. It's that they're having a completely different reaction to what you're going through than you are. For some partners, they feel like they have to be the strong ones. And so they won't let you see how they're feeling because they're seeing you breaking down, or they're seeing you so stressed out or so worried. They want to be your rock. For other partners, they're scared. And it's so much easier to go do something else, to go distract yourself, than to face your biggest fear. Which is what? To see you in pain, physically or emotionally, and possibly lose a child. When I had my ruptured ectopic, which was my first pregnancy, that's how we lost our first, I think that was harder on my husband than it was on me, because it was in my body. And I knew that while I knew there was something very wrong and I could feel something terrible was happening because I was bleeding internally before I had my surgery, I knew I wasn't in danger. Because you can feel it in your body when there's something very seriously wrong versus there's definitely something wrong, but it's not threatening my life. I knew that. I had that information because it was my body. My husband had no idea. Even if I told him that, which I think I did. Maybe, I don't remember now. Maybe I didn't. Maybe it was until later. But even if I had, and I told him this and reassured him, he's looking at it from the outside. And he's watching his wife, the person he loves the most in the world, suffering, struggling, feeling awful, not looking like herself, and knowing he's going to lose a child. While it's extremely difficult to carry this pregnancy, and gosh, do I know that, there are also many difficulties of being the person on the outside looking in. So when you're trying to get your partner involved, this is what I want you to do. I want you to sit down and schedule a time to talk to each other. Notice I didn't say sit down and talk to each other. I want you to sit down and schedule a time to talk to each other. If you're on bed rest and you're not doing anything, you've got all the time in the world to think about all this stuff. While your partner is running around taking care of all the other responsibilities, your other children, cooking, cleaning, working, whatever it is that's going on. So the time has to be right for both of you. Find a time that's good for you. And now, here's what I want you to do. I want you, when that time comes, and you guys are sitting down to talk, I want you to stop talking and ask your partner one question, and one question only. Whatever that is, what's on your mind? What do you want to know? How are you feeling? How are you coping? What's going on for you? How are you? Pick one. Ask one and listen. Now, this is where a lot of people have difficulty. So I'm going to tell you this right now, a little trick that you can use. When we listen, we're not usually listening. We're hearing the words and we're forming our rebuttal against what we know our partner is saying is something that's going to be ridiculous or something we disagree with. So what I want you to do instead of that is to catch yourself when you start thinking that way. Bring yourself back to your partner's words and listen to your partner as if you were conducting an interview and you're paying attention to the words and the words only. Okay? As your partner is talking, just listen. If you don't understand something that they're saying, ask them to repeat it. But otherwise, don't talk and just listen. Now, once you're done listening, I want you to repeat back what you heard. Because likely what they've just told you is something that you hadn't thought about before, even if it's a tiny little nugget of what they've said. And maybe it's not some huge grand revelation, but there's something in there that they've shared with you that you haven't really heard before. And I want you to show them that you've heard it. That connection is so powerful in a relationship, especially one that's going through such difficult times. The other thing I want you to try is, how about you initiate involvement sometime? I know for a lot of women, especially when you're going through a high-risk pregnancy, you're feeling awful. You're dealing with constant monitoring of your body. Right? And I think that's something a lot of people don't understand, is how often in the back of your head this machine is running, analyzing every single pain and pull and twinge that's happening to assess whether there's a problem or not. And it's exhausting. And sometimes we want our partners to just do it all, just know what I want and do it without me having to tell you. But it's hard for them too, and they don't know. And if your partner really cares about you, which I'm sure they do, they don't want to get it wrong. So you initiate the involvement. Come up with a specific idea that you want them to be involved in. For example, if you're trying to get pregnant, a great idea is to suggest to your partner to lie in bed with you while you're temping. Or while you're checking your blood pressure, hey, come sit next to me while I'm running my numbers and seeing how my levels are. Or while you're waiting for an appointment or a call from your doctor, ask them to play a game with you to kill the time. You have to ask for it because they don't know. And after you ask for it a couple times, they start to get a sense of what you like and what helps. I promise you they're going to pick up on it and they're going to start initiating too. You've just got to help them out. Another thing you can try is, and if this feels comfortable to you, this isn't great for everybody, so you decide if this feels comfortable or not, but sit and dream about your future together. What do you think your baby's going to look like? Who's the baby going to be like? What are you guys going to do together for your first holidays as a family with the baby? Dream about that. Let your mind wander and just imagine these happy moments that you're fighting for. Usually I'm all about mindfulness and being present and staying in the moment, but sometimes it's okay to let your mind drift to what you're fighting for and that vision that you're really hoping is going to be a reality. And the last thing that I want to really emphasize for you is that when your partner does something kind and supportive and wonderful, make a really big deal about it. Appreciate them, thank them, and show them how much it meant to you that they took that effort to bring you your favorite chocolate, or to bring you a cup of tea, or to sit next to you when you didn't even have to ask. And remind them all the ways that you know they're going to be an amazing parent. They need that too. I know you need it, but they need it too. If you do that for each other, it's just so powerful. So just to recap, to help you get your partner involved in your pregnancy, number one, have a conversation, except do most of the listening and see really give them the space to tell you what's on their mind. Number two is to initiate the involvement yourself, to kind of model what you'd like for them to do and to show them that you want them involved. Number three is to take some time out of the present and go into the future and dream about what you think your future might look like. And number four is to make a really big deal and appreciate your partner every time they do something wonderful for you. Taking care of your marriage on top of having a high-risk pregnancy is so stressful and draining and exhausting. But it's really important that you keep that foundation strong. For everything else that's about to come in the future, you need the two of you super tight and together. On this topic, I got an email from a reader, a listener, who emailed me and said, "Dear Parijat, my husband travels a lot for work and I'm 6 months pregnant. I feel so alone. He has missed all my doctor's appointments. I haven't been able to share my feelings and fears with him because he isn't around. Do I just accept that I'm having this baby by myself? But I'm starting to feel really angry and resentful about that, and I've lashed out at him a few times. What do I do? Thanks, Sarah." Sarah, oh my gosh, I wish I could reach out and give you a hug. Going through a pregnancy without your partner physically present is so, so difficult. And my heart goes out to you. This is such a hard time, and I know that this must be extra hard for you with your husband traveling so much. Usually, if you're feeling resentful, as you said, that's usually a sign that you're holding something in that's festering. And the longer you hold it in, the longer it's going to fester, and it's just going to get ugly. And you don't want it to affect your health. You don't want it to affect your pregnancy health or your baby's health. And it's never a good idea to let something sit inside and fester, but especially not a good idea when you are pregnant. So here are a few things that I want you to try. Have you thought about Skyping or FaceTiming when you're at your doctor's appointment? That can be a really great way to get your partner involved even when he's thousands of miles away. Thank goodness for technology, right? Another thing you can do is talk to him and figure out your schedules. Just compare calendars and say, okay, I've got appointments on these days and you're traveling on those days. How can we find a way to connect and make dates? Schedule these dates on your calendar the way that you used to schedule dates when you were dating, right? You can still do it now. And the last thing I want to tell you, Sarah, is you've got to tell him how you're feeling. So as I shared before, don't just throw it on him when he's traveling and he's maybe had a really bad day and you're not really thinking clearly because you're so into your anger or frustration. Plan it out, pull out your calendars, find a day when you want to talk to him, and then both of you sit down and talk about how to make this better. In your marriage, you are allowed to ask for something from your partner to make your marriage better. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just a matter of how you ask that makes a difference. I wish you all the best, Sarah. I hope you have a really pleasant rest of your pregnancy, and I hope you're able to get your husband involved a little bit more so that you can enjoy the birth of your baby together, even if he's traveling, but at least emotionally, spiritually, you guys are there together. You've got to get your partner involved in your pregnancy. And it's not enough to just ask for that and wish for that. You've got to make efforts, conscious efforts to get him or her involved. It's important for you. It's important for your partner. It's really important for your marriage. And that will ultimately translate to how you can be better parents for this baby. Thank you so much for joining me here today. If you want to know more about how to get through your pregnancy or your high-risk pregnancy with a stronger relationship and bond with your partner, or if you just want to know more about how to cope with a high-risk pregnancy, I'd love for you to schedule a consultation. So visit my website at parijatdeshpande.com. You can do it right from there. Also, I'd love to stay in touch. So follow me on Twitter or Instagram at Parijat Desh. That's Parijatdesh. The last thing that you need during a high-risk pregnancy is to have conflict with your partner. They should be your rock, your biggest supporter, your biggest fan, your biggest cheerleader, and vice versa. So take time out now to iron out the kinks in the relationship so you guys can be the best parents possible once this baby comes. Take it one day, one step at a time. You can. can do this.